The only thing that is different about intrusive thoughts is how we respond to them. Now you might be thinking, Katie, that is ridiculous. They feel so powerful and so real. And that's true. They absolutely do. But the reason that they feel so powerful and so real is because we give them so much power over us. Hey there, my name is Katie. I'm a licensed anxiety therapist on a mission to help you find peace, presence, and confidence in your daily life. If you're new around here, I want to make sure you know about my free anxiety resource that I created specifically to help you understand and manage anxiety in a way that's actually going to be effective long term. It is called the Calm Guide, and I will leave a link for that down in the description. The reason that intrusive thoughts feel so very different from other types of thoughts that we might have throughout our day is because we tend to judge the content of the thought itself. So it's not really the thought that's different in any way, it's really how we ourselves are perceiving the content or the topic of the thought. And typically for an intrusive thought, our perception is that we shouldn't be thinking it. And if we shouldn't be thinking it, then we kind of start to wonder some things about ourselves. We might think things like, why am I having this thought? What does it say about me that this thought crossed my mind? Do I believe that this thought is true, even if I don't think that I believe it, or maybe that I don't want to believe that it's true? And more than that, if I thought it, does it mean that it's true? All of these responses or all of these questions are secondary responses to the thought itself. Again, it's our perception of the thought that's making a difference here, not necessarily the thought that crosses our mind. So we have the thought and then we start judging the thought, and it's the judgment that gets us stuck. If we believe that we shouldn't be thinking something, this can actually initiate our body's fear response. And in so doing, we can kind of find ourselves pretty easily in an anxiety cycle. Now, I have an entire video that talks about the anxiety cycle specifically, so I'm not going to go too much into it today. I will leave a link for it so you can kind of check that video out after you finish this one if you want to. But for the purposes of this video today, here is what an anxiety cycle could look like for an intrusive thought. So you have the thought, and then we perceive that the thought is dangerous. That tends to initiate this distress and anxiety spike, and then we kind of panic and we try to block out or avoid the thought. Then this thought becomes louder, stronger, and more anxiety-inducing. We cannot control all of the thoughts that our brain creates. It's just not possible, and it's not how our body or our brain was wired. We can, however, change our relationship to the thoughts. We can even change our perception of the thoughts that cross our mind and our ability to respond to them or manage them in a way that's actually going to be helpful rather than harmful or leading to just a lot of anxiety for us. We can even manage the perception that we have of the thoughts themselves and the meaning that we make of them and the impact those thoughts have on our life and how we view ourselves and our relationships and just our world in general. Now, as with anything, this is not an overnight process. It's going to take time and practice and some patience as well for any of these changes to take place. So for today, I'm going to give you 3 steps to kind of help you start this process of changing your relationship to the thoughts or even your perception of the thoughts themselves. Step number 1 is to accept its presence. We have to first acknowledge that the thought itself exists. We have to acknowledge that it's present and to acknowledge even the content or the topic of the thought too. I promise you that immediately trying to make the thought go away is only going to make it stronger and louder and kind of more stuck in our minds, so we think about it a lot more and it causes us more distress. Step number 2 is to respond to each thought with as much neutrality as possible. So call out the thought for what it is. You can even place the statement, "I'm having the thought that," before saying the thought in your mind or even writing it down as like a complete sentence. Placing this statement before any thought just gives a little bit of distance between you and the thought. So often it's just really easy for us to say, okay, I'm thinking something, that means I believe it. That means it's a part of who I am. And so if I can say, you know what? No, I'm having the thought that I'm not good enough, or I'm having the thought that so-and-so is in danger right now. That places just a little bit of distance that's saying, this is just a thought and I get to choose if I want to believe it or if I don't. This step also creates a little bit of a pause in this automatic judgment that we tend to have over our thoughts. Pausing for a moment and putting this little bit of distance between you and the thought is going to make it much easier down the road as you continue practicing some of these steps to start to change your relationship to the thought and even change your response to the thought long term. Which actually brings us to step number 3, which is to return to your values. This can look like engaging in some type of activity that you enjoy, maybe even starting a project or an assignment that you've been procrastinating on because all of your attention has been on this intrusive thought or any other type of thought. This can also look like reminding yourself of what you know to be true. Maybe you already have a list of affirmations or reminders, or if you're religious, maybe even scriptures that you can kind of turn to and they provide a lot of comfort. You know them to be true deep down in your core self or even your soul. I will put a link to a free values inventory that is all online, and then you kind of go through it and answer all these questions, and they will email you the results that you can kind of check out and just see, what are my top values? What is really actually important to me? And that can kind of help you with this third step in deciding, what is it like to follow my values? What is it like to take a value-based action, especially in the midst of when we do have this anxiety spike or when we do have these intrusive thoughts, kind of making us question who we are and what we believe. Values have the power to create a lot of just calming, comforting, grounding for us, so we can kind of come back to our true self. We can come back to what we know, what we believe, and that can really help us to set the foundation for making a value-based action going forward. Whether this is an actual action, a behavior that we're engaging in, or even in just the response that we have to the thoughts that are coming across our mind, which is, what we're talking about in today's video. If you are on this journey of changing your relationship to your thoughts and maybe even to your emotions as well, I would love to hear from you. Maybe drop down into the comments and type in what has been most beneficial for you so far. And maybe even what has been most challenging that you've noticed throughout this journey of changing your relationship to your thoughts or your emotions. Hopefully this can get a good conversation going down in the comments. And not only that, but as I see some of those challenges kind of pop up, then I can best direct the content of these videos so they can be most helpful for you guys. Let me know what you thought of this video. Maybe hit that like button or subscribe, or share this with a friend or a loved one who also might benefit from some of these tips. Remember to grab that free anxiety guide before you head on to your next thing today. And if you're sticking around here on YouTube and you want to put some of these practices or put some of these steps into practice, then you can check out this free guided meditation. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time.